The procedure we have described is an example of an algorithm. An algorithm is a sequence of instructions for achieving a desired outcome. The procedure for finding the quotient and remainder for a pair ND of positive integers is called the division algorithm. In general, an algorithm requires input, information that we feed it, and it produces for us output, the information that we want. For example, for the division algorithm, the input is a pair, NND, of positive integers, and the output is the quotient Q and the remainder R. In the division algorithm, we keep subtracting D from N until we reach a number that is less than D. This iterative process can be expressed using what's called a while loop. A while loop has the following form. Okay, like this. Here we have the condition, and here we have a block of statements. So there will be several statements here. If the condition is true, then the block of statements is executed. If the condition is false, we exit the while loop and move on to the next algorithm. The condition is also called the guard of the loop because it guards entry into the loop. In the division algorithm, the condition we kept checking was whether the remainder R satisfied R being bigger than or equal to D. So this was the condition. R greater than or equal to D. Now, if this was satisfied, then we would subtract D from R and redefine R to be R minus D. So the condition in the while loop should be R greater than or equal to D. And one of the statements in the body of the while loop should be R equals R minus D. So the while loop looks like this. So here we have the condition R greater than or equal to D. And here in the body, we have R equals R minus D. We indicate the input variables N and D as follows. Okay, so N is a positive integer and D is a positive integer. We indicate the output variables Q and R as follows. So Q is an integer and R is a non-negative integer. So the division algorithm will look like this. Okay, we have the input variables N and D. And we have the output variables Q and R. And here we have the algorithm body. We need to assign initial values to Q and R. Since we start with N and repeatedly subtract D from N, we let the initial value of R be N. Now, if N is less than D, then N equals 0 times D plus N. In this case, the condition of the while loop is false, and we immediately exit the while loop. The output value for Q should be 0 here. So we let the initial value of q be 0. The division algorithm will now look like this. Okay, so we have the input values n and d. We have the algorithm body. The initial value for r is n, and the initial value for q is 0. Here we have the while loop, and here is the condition, and here we have r equals r minus d, and finally the output, we have q and r. Remember that q will be the number of iterations of the process of subtracting d from n. In other words, q will be the number of iterations of the while loop. Each time we go through the while loop, we should increase the initial value of q by 1. So one of the statements in the body of the while loop should be q equals q plus 1. So q equals q plus 1. Okay, now the while loop looks like this. Okay, we have the input, the algorithm body. The initial values are r equals n and q equals 0. Here we have the while loop. And we add it here, q equals q plus 1. So each time that the while loop iterates, q is increased by 1. Okay, so here, this is the full division algorithm. Okay, we plug in values for n and d, and this algorithm will run, and this while loop will iterate a bunch of times. It'll spit out output values q and r, which is what we want, the quotient and remainder.